What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So today we're heading back to that Gigaleak because it looks like some new information has found its way online, giving some insight into Retro Studios and a canceled game in the Zelda universe. That's right, we're gonna go over that one here today. Also, we're gonna be talking about a big time sale going on right now on the PlayStation Store with several first-party and third-party titles seeing some pretty good discounts. And we're also gonna be talking about the Nintendo Switch Online games that were announced because somehow they're getting worse. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're gonna start today with Pro Evolution Soccer. Last year, Konami took the year off and said, we're gonna move this series over to Unreal Engine and kind of rethink our strategy here going forward for the series that was attempting to compete with FIFA, but it really wasn't a competition. FIFA was like the football or soccer game pretty much for years and years now. Well, we do have an official announcement for Konami around what's happening with Pro Evolution Soccer, as it looks like they are rebranding it, you can see some of it here, to eFootball, and they will be moving it to free-to-play. That's right, it's going to be an annualized soccer game that will now have updates each year as a free-to-play title, and I'm sure they'll be seeking out several other ways to monetize this game. Now, it is heading to PS5, PS4, Xbox Series XS, Xbox One, and PC this fall, and they're looking into iOS and Android versions as well. They didn't comment on the Switch, but I mean, it's on Unreal Engine, and they're already looking at mobile devices to move it to, so I wouldn't be shocked if they're looking at the Switch right now and developing it, because free-to-play games obviously rely heavily on monthly active users, and we see the Switch install base continue to grow massively here, but I'm curious how this is going to go over and if it will move the market at all, because we already see these annualized sports titles kind of adopting a lot of the monetization practices that free-to-play games have. So I know we talk about free-to-play games, we go, oh, another free-to-play game. I mean, this is the genre, the annualized sports titles, where it makes the most sense. So, I mean, I'll be curious to see how eFootball does, and we'll look towards that later on this year. Also, it looks like we now have official confirmation that Netflix will be moving into gaming. Let's head over here to VGC, where they say in its latest financial results published on Tuesday, the company said it was currently in the early stages of expanding into games, building on its earlier efforts around interactive television. Games will be included in members' Netflix subscription at no additional cost, the company said, and initially, it will be primarily focused on games for mobile devices. This is a quote from Netflix in a letter to shareholders saying, "We view gaming as another new content category for us, similar to our expansion into original films, animation, and unscripted TV." This is actually very interesting, mostly because of Netflix's current subscriber base. It is massive. If you take the PS4 and the Switch, those install bases, add them together, that's roughly what Netflix has at over 200 million active subscribers. And if you take gaming and just kind of throw it into the subscription service and it's there when you turn on Netflix, it's going to depend on how they approach this. Is it going to be game streaming like we see with Luna or Stadia? Or are they going to develop native games that say download to your mobile phone, as they're saying here, and then you just access it through Netflix? If they do pursue game streaming, I'll tell you now, third-party developers like a Ubisoft or an EA or whoever, they're going to be falling over themselves to get on that platform and in front of those 200 million subscribers that does continue to grow. So we'll see how this turns out. It's not gonna be anything in the short term. It's gonna take them a while to get there, but certainly something to keep our eye on. Oh, and I see some of you occasionally ask about Beyond Good and Evil 2. What's going on with this game? It's been a while since we've heard about it. Well, it looks like Ubisoft did comment on it, and you're gonna have to see this one for yourself. This was over PC Gamer when asked whether it might appear in Ubisoft's fiscal year 2024, which for the record would put it sometime after May 2023. Chief Financial Officer Frederick Duguid said, "We are progressing well with Beyond Good and Evil 2, but it's too early to tell you more at this stage." It's too early. The game was, I remember, really talked about even in 2012. So like next year will be 10 years of really talking about this game, and it was kind of around for a bit there. Remember, they put it on their stage, they talked about it, they showed cinematic trailer, they showed some gameplay at one point in a stream, and it kind of disappeared after that. So we're talking about like just back half of 2023 right now, and they couldn't comment on that. It's like, whew, I'm sensing some skull and bones level development here when it comes to Beyond Good and Evil 2, although that seems kind of obvious, I would say, at this point. So I guess we're looking sometime after 2023, maybe even in 2024. Not for when it releases, but like when we'll see it again. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this Gigaleak and Retro Studios. A year ago, there was a story that was circulating online. It was kind of rumor territory because people were just kind of talking about it, and there was some concept art that was thrown out there, which was kind of cool, but Nintendo never commented on it. Obviously, why would they? But it was really about Retro Studios having a canceled project in the Zelda universe. But this Gigaleak has now confirmed that that was a thing. Let's head over here to Nintendo Life, where they give us a little backstory before we move on to the Gigaleak itself. They say it was supposedly an action/JRPG game that was going to star Sheik and would have been a story set within the bad ending of The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, exploring the journey of the last Sheikah while Dark Gerudo were giving their 100-year birth to Ganon. Now, if we go down here to the tweet from Mr. Talata, they say more Nintendo leaks happened today. One doc lists all games in development around 2006, so right around when the Wii was showing up, including an action game featuring Sheik from Zelda Ocarina of Time. And this was followed up by Joshua on Twitter saying, it says Retro Studio in katakana there, so I'm pretty sure that is exactly what it is. Now, you can also see some of the concept art that was shared on Twitter by Kyo. And I mean, you could see how dark this game was supposed to be overall in terms of its tone. And if it was going to be exploring the bad ending of Ocarina of Time, that makes a lot of sense. Retro Studios, I guess, would have tackled a very mature setting and just overall tone for the Legend of Zelda series. And that's a shame because that would have been massive for big-time Zelda enthusiasts, especially people who are really into the lore, to be able to explore that kind of timeline, that kind of world with Retro Studios developing it. But this is something I've noticed with Retro Studios, and I know we kind of hold them up to a certain standard because when they do release a game that they work on from start to finish, it turns out to be pretty good. Like with Tropical Freeze was the last one, right? In 2014, 7 years ago, by the way. But it was very good. Donkey Kong Country Returns before that, very good. The Metroid Prime series, they're all good. And then you also look at some of their co-development they've done with Mario Kart 7 on the 3DS. Turned out to be a pretty good game, but their game output isn't exactly great. And something strange with Retro Studios that I've noticed is, I don't know if Nintendo even fully trusts them because they were their second choice for Prime 4. This game had to completely fall apart before Nintendo was like, maybe Retro Studios should work on this thing. I mean, I guess Nintendo wanted to bring it internally and even work on some of it with Bandai Namco. At least that was the story. They went to put it together. Didn't work out. And then I guess their last resort was, let's see what Retro can do with this. But what were they doing the whole time before that? Were they working on projects that were canceled? We'll find out again, years from now in another big leak. It's odd because we do hear about a lot of projects that are canceled at Retro, some of them rumored, some of them get confirmed like this years later even. So I'm hoping right now that Metroid Prime 4 comes out and it's very good because right now I feel like Retro is going to pull it off, but I mean, to be honest, it's hard to just say 100% confidence that they absolutely will with Metroid Prime 4 because we hear about a lot of canceled things, and I almost think that Nintendo sees stuff they're working on, they're like, nah, we're not doing that. We're canceling that. Let's start something new. At least now we know what they're working on with Metroid Prime 4, and hopefully we'll see it next year, cinematic trailer even, and then probably moving into 2023 when it finally gets released. But wow, a Legend of Zelda game from Retro Studios exploring the bad ending for Ocarina of Time where you play as Sheik. What could have been? Next up, let's talk about the big summer sale currently going on the PlayStation Store. And this is already running, will go until August 18th. And there are a lot of games. I think there's like over 1,000 games that currently are seeing discounts on the PlayStation Store. And Sony did mention that August 4th, some games will be changed out for other games that will see discounts. But I went through like usual, picked out a few, and feel free to also let some people know down in the comments which ones are good pickups. But we'll start here with Spider-Man Miles Morales. That's also on the PS5, $35 there. Good to see, by the way, some of these PS5 titles seeing discounts digitally because if you have the all digital PS5, you're kind of stuck to this store. But Returnal down to $50, Demon's Souls down to $50, It Takes Two at $30, and I also pointed out Final Fantasy XIV Complete Edition here because I know it's very popular right now, and people who are maybe going through like kind of the trial, the free-to-play part, and really getting invested in it might want to take advantage of a sale here at $24 for it. Sackboy is down to $40, Need for Speed Heat at $15, Disco Elysium down to $24, Outer Wilds at $15, Everybody's Golf at $10. I threw Gravity Rush 2 in there because, I mean, it's $12. It's a good game. There you go, Japan Studios. And then Shadow Warrior 2 at $10, and .hack GU Last Recode, which is a collection of games for $5. But overall, pretty good sale. Certainly one to check out if you've been holding out on some of these games at $70 from Sony with these first-party titles, and looking at a lot of the third-party stuff, it's pretty solid. So definitely one to check out. Keep in mind, like I said, August 4th, come back and take a look at the sales that they have, as they are going to be changing some of them out. Next up, let's talk about those Nintendo Switch Online games that were announced be heading to the service. That being July 28th, they announced 3 different games, and well, let's take a look at them here. Starting with Claymates, all right. Then we have Jelly Boy and Bomboozle. Just 3 classics right here, and looking at the like to dislike ratio over on YouTube, well, it's pretty telling. People are not very happy with this selection because, to be honest, it's pretty bad. I mean, they've had some pretty bad months so far, I guess just updates because they do it once every 3 months or so now, but this one was pretty bad. Like, if they've been picking their games by throwing darts at a dartboard, somebody must have missed 3 times in a row, and here we are now with the July game updates. And I've said this before, but I believe Nintendo is in a weird spot right now, because if we look at it from their point of view, they have a service that they are charging $20 a year right now, and they've amassed over 100 classic games from the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo. And in their mind, that's a pretty good value. I mean, really, if you look at it for some of the games on there currently, and especially if you take their retro prices into account, that is a good value at $20 a year, and it attaches the online service, cloud saves. Nintendo's thinking, wow, we're doing all of this for $20 a year? So yeah, they're pretty much scraping the bottom of the barrel, as I think they try to figure out what to do right now. If they could have shown up with at least an average online service, they would not have had to attach the retro games to it, because they were a third of what the competition with Microsoft and Sony were charging. So they could have just played off of that and like, hey, cloud saves, a decent online with extra functionality like, I don't know, messaging your friends, and it's $20 a year. And people would have said, well, all right, I guess I have to pay that because I pay 3 times that on the Xbox or on the PlayStation, and they would have moved along. No, they've attached a service that should have been separate from the beginning and probably would have collected like $10 a month for what would have been a better selection, because they wouldn't have been capped monetarily like they are now at $20 a year. Can they start throwing all these big time games in there like Nintendo 64 and Game Boy Advanced and Earthbound? Well, probably not. And I think they're going to revisit this again, maybe later this year or next year, with higher price tiering. Like, I think that is coming because they can only scrape the bottom of the barrel so many times. I've said that a few times now, but like, they do keep surprising me. Also, let's just spend a moment to take in what Nintendo says you could do if you can't find an older game or system on, say, their most popular platform like the Switch. Let's head over here to an actual page from Nintendo's customer service section on their website. You can see at the top here, it says, where can I find refurbished, older, and used Nintendo products? You can go to store.nintendo.com. It makes sense. They might have accessories or replacement parts and authentic Nintendo refurbished products. We've ordered some stuff from there. Came out pretty good. Online retailers, many online retailers specialize in stocking older and used products. Pawn shops, as they believe it or not, pawn shops are an excellent place to find older products. Garage sales, flea markets are classified as. You can often find great deals in games that can be difficult to find. Remember, cleaning before use is highly recommended. It's a good tip. Online auction sites as a great source of hard to find or discontinued products. eBay usually comes through. There we go. And they even provide several search words to use like NES hardware, SNES hardware, Super Nintendo, video game systems. I mean, Nintendo's got all the bases covered here, so if Metroid Fusion doesn't show up, say, on the Switch just ahead of Metroid Dread's release, because, I mean, that would make a lot of sense, you can always go to eBay and pick up a copy for just north of $100. Also, I already see you typing in the comments, you should just plug in your Wii U, but I mean, come on. Let's not get ridiculous here. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a pretty cool feature heading to Dolphin, which is an emulator that a lot of people use for GameCube games or Wii titles. We can see this update here where they announce MGBA integration. That is introducing the integrated Game Boy Advance. They have a list of features you can do here, which includes multiplayer games, transferable mini games, bonus modes or extra content, connectivity with the Game Boy Advance game, and yes, the Pokemon games, which includes things like Gale of Darkness, Pokemon Box, Pokemon Coliseum, and they also mention NetPlay. Now, of course, you can see some of the different games and stuff they point out here, with the obvious example being Four Swords Adventure, where you can connect all the Game Boy Advance games and play through that together. This is a really cool thing to see, because the idea now of getting those Game Boy Advance link cables is pretty annoying, and then of course getting all the people together and get Game Boy Advance same room. I like the idea of this functionality just being added in natively for Dolphin. Then you can pretty much emulate a lot of those titles through even NetPlay and go through these different games with a Game Boy Advance being emulated and hooked up to the GameCube. Could open up all kinds of really cool avenues here for these different titles and be able to play with your friends. So if you're already someone using Dolphin, make sure you check this one out. And if not, it might be worth it, especially, of course, if you own the games, considering emulation is pretty straightforward and legal at that point. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, would you rather have the traditional virtual console setup on the Switch that we had on the Wii or Wii U? 90% of you said yes, and I'm looking at this right now. It's a subscription service that we have currently on the Switch, whereas before, we would just buy releases as they were dropped on the Wii or the Wii U by Nintendo, and I almost wonder if Nintendo's more incentivized with the old virtual console model, because they would drop it on the shop and then they would just make a ton of money because they put it up there as like a $6, $7, $8, $10 purchase, whereas now they're just adding games to hold up a subscription service. And I don't even think adding games to the service necessarily brings in new subscribers. I think people are subscribing right now because, like, hey, if you want to play online, you have to subscribe. Again, an issue Nintendo had when they first did this entire thing is that they couldn't seem to put out something that was at least worth the $20 value with their online service without the necessity to have this subscription service attached, and it's kind of costing them right now in the long run. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Jay saying, if you go to the trailer of the last video store on YouTube, the creators talk about working with existing streaming services or just movies you have on a hard drive in the comments. It's a cool idea. And that's kind of what I was saying. This is a good idea to kind of dress up the Netflix experience of just going through the menus. Instead, you go to a video store in VR and you kind of walk around and you see the selection that would normally be in that menu, but as VHS tapes or DVDs or whatever, right, on the shelves. And you walk around, they could do some fun things with the store and kind of the themes during maybe even different parts of the year. So, like, it's a good idea for that. I don't know if it would hold up as its own game necessarily, but it would be kind of cool. You know what I'm curious? How many people sit and watch an entire movie in VR? I do wonder how many people actually do that. Let me know in the comments if that's something you do regularly, kind of put the VR headset on, just watch through an entire 2 or 3 hour movie. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. There's this canceled Zelda game that I guess was in the conceptual stage at Retro Studios in 2006. What do you think about that? And what could have been there, right? And then also, what about the big PlayStation Store sale going on now? Of course, leave some suggestions. Then the Nintendo Switch Online service right now. What does Nintendo do going forward with it? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.